everyone, my name is Eleftheria Bourdzinakou and I'm from Gateshead College. This year we conducted two action research projects. In this presentation we will share the findings of the project that linked the CPA model to the development of reasoning skills. In our project we explored the impact of the CPA model on students' performance on reasoning and problem-solving questions. The question derived from the initial assessments administered at the beginning of the school year. The assessments revealed that students struggled to reason and explain their mathematical thinking, or even didn't attempt the questions that involved reasoning. Looking at ways to support our learners to develop these skills, the readings of peer-reviewed articles helped us to discover the positive impact that CPA approach can have on the development of reasoning and problem-solving skills. The articles, though, mostly refer to research that has been conducted in primary and secondary schools. An interesting finding was that no articles investigated the impact of the CPA model in further education settings. This project has attempted to explore the application of the CPA model in FE and its impact on reasoning skills. The project was completed in 2 cycles. 2 groups participated in this project in both cycles. It is important to mention, particularly during the first cycle, that COVID had a profound impact on the number of participants. The topics taught included fractions, taught for 3 consecutive weeks, followed by 2 weeks on ratio and proportion. Cycle 2 was a follow-up from the data of the first cycle and was completed in 3 weeks. 2 lessons were offered weekly and the duration of each lesson was an hour and a half. The structure of the first lesson included a starter activity, the main lesson of the topic using Google Slide presentation, and classroom activities. The highlight of both the lesson presentation and the classroom activities was the use of the maths manipulatives. Students also presented their work using Desmos and Jamboard activities. Hecate Maths was used as homework assignment in between the 2 lessons. Second lesson began with starting activity again, extension of the topic, and an end of week short assessment. During the lesson, students had access to resources such as maths manipulatives, fraction bars, fraction circles, counters. They were available on their desks and their use was optional. Materials were displayed in all desks as every other resource of the classroom. The labels of the maths manipulatives that indicate the recommended age level were covered by a sticker to label them as a GCSE type of resource instead. Also, students didn't have to follow a particular order of the 3 stages of the CPA model, concrete, pictorial, or abstract. They could go back and forth between them as needed. Now, this slide, you can see the chronological outline of cycle 1. The cycle started with a pre-assessment prior to intervention. 1 for fractions, and 3 weeks after 1 for ratio. The pre-assessment was teacher designed and based on GCSE exam-like questions. Then lesson activities followed using the CPA model approach. Then post-assessments were administered to evaluate the impact of the lessons. The last part of the cycle included 2 Google Form surveys. The surveys explored the students' preferred methods and learning styles after each topic was completed. After analyzing the data of the surveys, interview sessions were conducted in order to further highlight and explain certain ways of students' work and thinking. Now, looking at the data in cycle 1. We organized the assessment questions by their type. So orange area shows AO1 questions. Light blue area represents the AO2 question data, and the green area, the AO3 questions, the problem-solving questions. Now, cycle 1 data showed a significant improvement on students' performance on reasoning and problem-solving skills. Improvement has been made on AO1 question, however, the greatest impact was on AO2 and AO3 questions. Out of the survey data, more than half of the students felt that drawings helped them with fraction and ratio questions. However, about a third of students expressed concerns on if they used the representations properly. The remaining 13% found that drawing do not help them to answer fraction questions. Those may be the students who already feel comfortable with their already learned methods that they use. It's important to value students' prior learning. And this is one of the 5 key principles for mastery teaching in further education. Also, no student found that modeling is not helpful to answer ratio questions. In regards to the type of questions, students would use mostly drawings for ratio representation questions and sharing word problems. For best buy and recipe problems, we probably use ratio tables or another strategy. Now, the data of cycle 1 led us to investigate further and deeper the students' solving methods on reasoning questions. So we wanted to investigate further how individuals used the models that they found helpful in cycle 1. For that purpose, our original title of the project changed by moving the apostrophe from students with the apostrophe after the S to students with the apostrophe before the S. Now, cycle 2 began with a series of activities for 3 weeks, 6 lessons, on representation, equivalence, operation on fractions, fraction of an amount questions. Then data analysis, we were looking at the student responses and methods, and then we conducted interviews with students so they can explain with their own words their problem-solving solutions, their problem-solving methods. Now, looking at the student responses, we thought to give students a question phrased solely in words, no numbers or symbols were involved. The question was, how many halves in 6/4? Now, in this question, only 3 out of 15 students chose to use the KFC method, the keep, flip, change method for dividing fractions, and the success rate in this case was 20%. The rest, 10 students, 10 out of 13, chose to use pictorial methods and had a success rate of 60%. The models that students used were the bar models by 80%, and 20% of the students used fraction circles. There was no other type of pictorial presentation attempted by the students. Same activity conducted at Sunderland College with 7 students. Similar difficulties and misconceptions have been identified. Students used learned procedures that they were not able to record properly, misconceptions about the whole idea revealed, and the confusion on the absence of numbers and symbols. Now, the following one is an example of a student work who began to work on that question first at an abstract level, using 6/4, getting 1.4 as an answer. But then the student realized that the answer should be given out of how many halves. So the used method was supported by 2 drawings below. One drawing using the fraction circles representing 3 halves. No fourths were involved in this representation. And the second one using the 2 bar models split in fourths this time. We can always see that the 2 bar models are not equal in size. This is a sample, though, that shows us that the student got the right answer this time, but made us wondering if it will get the answer in another case. There's no like a solid method that will possibly help the student in another case. Now, our findings overall from both circles are listed on this slide. So overall, there was a significant improvement on reasoning and problem-solving questions. Also, there was like a high interest for students to use pictorial representations, and the preference was on bar model. Misconceptions were definitely around unitizing, and that misconception was apparent in most of the activities. Many students felt that they experienced difficulty on using the models effectively, although they wanted to use the models. That made us think about if we need more time to give students to explore concrete and pictorial approaches. Also, students found themselves trapped in shortcuts and learned procedures when working with fractions, procedures that they have learned from previous school year settings. Follow-up thoughts are the importance to identify misconceptions prior to teaching, to inform our teaching methods. And teaching fractions, unitizing was a huge issue out of this project. It was the major misconception. Also, thinking about visual presentation vs shortcut methods. It's important to value students' prior learning. If they already have an approach to use and successful, they can definitely continue using that approach. But if they want to try a new method, a new approach, it's important to consider visual presentations to help them develop problem-solving skills. Also, this project has to be interpreted with caution as we used only a small student sample. For next year, considering the sequence of scheme of work is important, start thinking about connections among the topics we teach. Now, thank you for listening and hope you enjoyed this presentation on CPA and reasoning. Please let us know if you have any questions within the next 5 minutes.